He thought I left with just a suitcase and a bruise. He didn't see the small key I placed back on the kitchen counter, the one that would open a different door. I walked out of that house with trembling hands and left behind something that could expose everything he'd been hiding. Some people call revenge a dish best served cold. I call it a 186-page PDF file, digitally signed in triplicate. The day I tried to leave, my stepfather's fist taught me what he thought of my independence. But while he was throwing punches, I'd already thrown the first stone. He just didn't know it yet. My name is Nora Blake, and I've been counting ceiling tiles at 3 a.m. for longer than I care to remember. 29 years old, 12-hour shifts in the ICU at Riverlight Medical, and still living in my childhood home in Silverton, Ohio. Not exactly the life I'd planned when I graduated nursing school, but grief has a way of rewriting your timeline. Dad died 3 years ago. Sudden cardiac arrest, the kind we see too often in my unit. His will was straightforward. The house split equally between Mom and me. 2 names on the deed, 50-50. Mom cried for 6 months, then met Carl Whitman at a hardware store while buying paint for the bathroom Dad never got to finish. Carl owns Whitman Renovations, drives a lifted F-250 with his company logo wrapped around it like armor. He moved in after 8 months of dating Mom, bringing his leather recliner, his opinions about everything, and his toolbox that never seemed to leave the kitchen counter. "This place needs work," he announced his first morning here, running his contractor's eye over our perfectly functional home. "Lucky you've got me now." The renovations started small. A new backsplash here, crown molding there. Then came bigger projects. The basement that didn't need waterproofing. The deck that was apparently structurally unsound, despite being only 5 years old. Every weekend, the house filled with the scream of power tools and the acrid smell of fresh paint that made my scrubs reek during shifts. "Another invoice?" Mom would ask, her voice thin as tissue paper whenever Carl spread his paperwork across the dining table. "Investment in our future, Denise," he'd say, squeezing her shoulder while his eyes tracked my movement from the coffee maker to the back door. "Nora understands, don't you, Nora? All this equity we're building?" I understood plenty, like how a bathroom remodel that should cost $8,000 somehow reached $15,000, how materials arrived in trucks with no company names, how Carl's crew consisted of different guys every week, paid in cash, no contracts. "Must be nice," he'd say during dinner, sawdust still in his hair. Working those cushy hospital shifts, all that overtime pay and nothing to show for it. I'd grip my fork tighter, thinking of the savings account he didn't know about, the one I'd opened at a credit union across town. Every extra shift, every holiday double time, every night I stayed late charting. It all went into that account, my escape fund, growing slowly like a secret plant in the dark. Mom started losing weight that winter. Not the healthy kind, the hollowed-out kind that comes from swallowing arguments instead of food. She'd flutter around Carl like a moth afraid of the flame but unable to pull away. When he criticized my schedule, my career, my failure to contribute to household improvements, she'd study her plate like it held the mysteries of the universe. The house transformed around us, but not in ways that made sense. Copper pipes replaced in rooms with perfect plumbing while the guest bathroom toilet ran constantly, premium granite countertops installed over cabinets with loose hinges, a $20,000 renovation loan taken out for the roof, though I'd counted exactly 3 new shingles from my bedroom window. "You keeping track of something up there?" Carl asked one night, catching me at the window with my phone camera aimed at the roof. "Just admiring your work," I said, my voice steady as my hands during a code blue. He smiled, the kind that never reached his eyes. "Good. Families should appreciate what I do for this place, what I do for all of us." The wall between my room and theirs was thin. I heard him at night, not yelling. Carl was too smart for that. But talking in that low, measured tone that made Mom apologize for things that weren't her fault. The house settling, the refrigerator humming, my car in the driveway. "She's almost 30. His voice would rumble through the drywall. "Normal women her age have their own places, husbands, kids." I'd lie in my twin bed, the same one from high school. staring at those ceiling tiles and planning. Every document he left out. I photographed every receipt, every invoice, every casual mention of which contractor buddy owed him a favor. The secret account grew alongside my evidence folder, hidden in a cloud storage he'd never think to look for because real work doesn't happen on computers. 3 years of Dad being gone. 2 years of Carl's renovations. 1 year of me realizing that the house, Dad's house, our house, was becoming something else entirely. A project, a piggy bank, a prison with fresh paint and new fixtures. But Carl didn't know about my night shifts in more ways than one, while he slept off his six-pack. I studied Ohio property law on my phone. While he drew up inflated invoices, I documented discrepancies. While he played the devoted boyfriend and protective father figure, I built my case file, brick by digital brick. The house was changing, but so was I. And Carl Whitman was about to learn that some renovations can't be undone with a sledgehammer and fresh drywall. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, thin, official, with the First National Bank logo that made my stomach drop before I even opened it. I stood in the driveway, still in my scrubs after a brutal shift, reading the words 3 times before they made sense. Second mortgage approved, monthly payment schedule enclosed, signature N. Blake. My signature, except I'd never signed anything. I walked into the kitchen where Carl was measuring something on blueprints, his thick fingers tracing lines I couldn't understand. Mom sat across from him, sorting through another stack of receipts. Mail came, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Anything you want to tell me about a second mortgage? Carl didn't look up. House maintenance isn't free, Nora. Your mother agreed it was necessary. The letter has my signature on it. Now he looked up, that practiced confusion spreading across his face. Must be some paperwork mix-up. You probably signed something months ago. I handle a lot of documents. I photographed the letter in my car before going inside that night, then drove to the 24-hour FedEx to scan it properly. The signature was close. Whoever forged it had practiced, but the K in Blake was wrong, too sharp, and the N was tilted at an angle I never used. Maya Ortiz found me in the break room the next morning, stress-eating vending machine cookies at 6 a.m. You look like someone who needs legal advice, she said, sliding into the plastic chair across from me. Maya worked as our legal coordinator, handling liability issues and documentation. We'd become friends over shared night shifts and mutual exhaustion. Hypothetically, I said, if someone forged your signature on a loan document? Maya's expression sharpened. Hypothetically, that's fraud. Federal crime if it crosses state lines. State felony otherwise. Hypothetically, you'd want every piece of paper, every email, every text message. She leaned forward. And hypothetically, you'd want to talk to my friend who specializes in real estate fraud. Today. That afternoon, I called in sick for my next shift, first time in 2 years, and drove to Columbus. The lawyer, James Holbrook, had an office that smelled like leather and coffee. He listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally writing notes on a yellow legal pad. Start documenting everything, he said, but be smart about it. Email yourself copies, use timestamps, and Nora? He looked at me over his reading glasses. Does he have access to your devices? No. Different passwords for everything. Good. Keep it that way. I drove home with a recorder app downloaded on my phone and a plan. Ohio was a one-party consent state. I could legally record conversations I was part of. The private investigator Holbrook recommended would cost $3,000. I had $8,000 saved. Carl made it easy. He loved to talk when he drank, especially about money. Your dad didn't understand property value. He said that Friday, 3 beers in while Mom was at her book club. Sitting on this gold mine, barely maintaining it, the equity I've built here, that's real wealth creation. Must be expensive, I said, washing dishes with my phone recording in my pocket. All these improvements. That's the beauty of it, he laughed. You leverage existing assets. The bank sees the value I see. Your signature on that paperwork helps that we're all family now. I don't remember signing anything. Sure you did. That stack of insurance forms? Slipped it right in there. You were rushing to work, remember? Always rushing. I remembered that morning. He'd pressured me to sign routine maintenance agreements while I was late for a trauma alert. I'd specifically read each page. There'd been 3 forms, not 4. The investigator, a former cop named Allison Cross, worked fast. Within a week, she had photographs of Carl meeting with contractors who didn't exist on paper, supply deliveries that went to other job sites, and a particularly damning shot of him at a casino boat on the Indiana border the same day he'd supposedly bought materials for our kitchen remodel. But the real goldmine came from his own computer. He'd saved his emails to a folder labeled House Stuff, password protected with Mom's birthday. The man who preached about real work versus computer work had digitized his entire fraud operation. Email after email showed the pattern: inflate the estimate, use cheap materials, pocket the difference, bill the house renovation fund for ghost work, submit insurance claims for damage that never happened, and in one thread with someone named Derek, clear as day, got the daughter's signature handled, Photoshop and a steady hand. I screenshot everything using my phone while Carl was at a job site, my hands shaking so badly I had to retake half the photos. Each image uploaded automatically to 3 different cloud services and Holbrook's secure server. We need the originals. Allison told me when I showed her. The actual files, not just screenshots. Metadata proves when they were created and modified. So I bought a USB drive, tiny, innocuous, the kind you'd lose in your pocket. The next time Carl left his laptop open to run to the bathroom, I had 90 seconds to copy the entire folder. My ICU training kept my hands steady. I'd done chest compressions for longer than this transfer took. By the end of the month, I had it all. Forged documents with digital timestamp proving they were created after my supposed signature, invoices for materials never delivered, photos of completed work stolen from other contractors' websites, and that email about photoshopping my signature. This is enough for criminal charges, Holbrook said, reviewing everything in his office. But Nora, once we start this, he's going to know it was you. I thought about Mom's shrinking frame, the way she jumped when Carl's truck pulled in the driveway, how she'd stop singing while cooking. I know, I said. That's why I need an exit strategy. The plan had 2 layers, like the duplicate forms Carl used to hide his real invoices. Layer A was my safety net. Holbrook helped me file for a temporary protection order based on Carl's escalating aggression and financial abuse. The judge granted it pending a full hearing, but I didn't serve it yet. That paper stayed in my glove compartment like a loaded flare gun. I found an apartment at Red Maple Residences, a complex with security cameras and key fob entry. Put down the deposit but asked them to hold the unit for 2 weeks. Changed my phone to a new number, keeping the old one active so Carl wouldn't notice. Maya helped me open a new bank account at a completely different bank, moving my savings in small transfers that looked like coffee purchases and grocery runs. But the real preparation was the dead man's switch. It's simple. Maya's tech-savvy brother Luis explained, setting it up on my laptop at a Starbucks 40 miles from home. You log into this secure portal once every 24 hours. Just a quick check-in, even from your phone. If you miss the window, the system automatically sends your preloaded package to your list of recipients. My package was comprehensive, 186 pages of evidence, organized with an index that would make any prosecutor weep with joy. Financial fraud, insurance fraud, forgery, conspiracy, everything time-stamped, cross-referenced, and verified. Recipients included First National Bank's Fraud Department, the State Attorney General's Office, the Ohio Department of Insurance, the County Prosecutor, the IRS, and the State Licensing Board for Contractors, plus 3 journalists who specialized in contractor fraud stories. What if I'm just in surgery and can't check in? I asked. That's why you have the 24-hour window, Luis said. And this, he showed me how to set vacation mode if needed, requiring 2-factor authentication. Nobody can stop this train once it starts rolling except you. Layer B was simpler but required more nerve. I bought a small combination safe, the kind you'd hide jewelry in, inside. I placed printed copies of the most damning evidence, the forged signature, the Photoshop email, side-by-side comparisons of real versus inflated invoices. On top, I put a single sheet of paper. Carl, the full documentation has already been distributed to the authorities. Your next move determines whether this stays civil or becomes criminal. Call your lawyer, N. The safe would stay locked, but the combination, Mom's actual birthday, not the one Carl thought it was, would be written on a tiny piece of paper inside a magnetic key holder, the kind designed to hide under cars. Instead, I'd leave it in plain sight on the kitchen counter the day I left. Carl had installed a security system the previous month to protect our investment. He'd said, what he didn't know was that I'd registered my phone as a secondary user. I could see every time a door opened, every motion detected. More importantly, I could download the footage. 3 nights before I planned to leave, Carl came home drunk from a contractors association dinner. He found me organizing papers in my room, actually sorting old nursing school notes. But he didn't know that. Always scribbling, he slurred, leaning against my doorframe. Just like your father, head in the clouds, while real men handle real work. I kept my voice recorder running. Dad worked 30 years at the steel plant before he got his teaching degree, and died broke. Carl stepped into my room, his bulk filling the space. Good thing I'm here to clean up his mess. Your mother appreciates it. Shame you can't. I should get ready for my shift. Always running away. He picked up a photo from my dresser. Dad and me at my nursing school graduation. Maybe if you contributed more instead of hoarding your money, I wouldn't have to work so hard to keep this place from falling apart. The house was fine before I fixed it. Please. He set the photo down too hard, the frame cracking. Your signature on those loan papers was the only useful thing you've done for this family. I never signed any loan papers, Carl. He smiled, that lazy predator smile. Sure you did. Got the documents to prove it. Amazing what people forget when they're in a hurry. I played my part, looking confused and worried. What documents? The ones in my office safe. Not that it matters. Bank already approved everything. Money's spent. Work's done. He knocked on my doorframe as he left. You should thank me. Your credit score's never been better. The recording was crystal clear. Admission of forgery. Admission of fraud. Even the location of the original forged documents. Luis helped me back it up to 6 different locations that night. Maya brought me boxes from the hospital loading dock, the kind used for medical supplies. You moving? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Friday, I said. Day shift, so he'll be gone. You want backup? Already arranged. Mr. Callahan from next door, the retired cop, had agreed to be present, just trimming his hedges, but watching. Mrs. Patterson across the street would have her son visiting, her son the state trooper, off duty but aware. I packed methodically, clothes, documents, Dad's watches and his grandfather's war medals, Mom's jewelry from before Carl. I'd keep it safe for her. My nursing textbooks, my licenses, everything that made me who I was beyond this house. The safe with its damning evidence went into a box labeled Winter Decorations. The magnetic key holder waited in my pocket like a grenade pin. Thursday night, I worked my last shift at Riverlight, trading weekends to get Friday off. Told my supervisor I was moving, needed the day. She approved it without questions. Nurses relocating was nothing new. Carl left for a job site at 7 a.m. Friday, complaining about a concrete delivery running late. Perfect. Construction delays could eat an entire day. Mom sat at the kitchen table, staring at her coffee. You're really leaving, she said, not a question. I have to. He's not a bad man. Nora, he has a temper about money. I kissed her forehead, smelling the vanilla shampoo she'd used since I was small. I love you, Mom. When you're ready to see what he really is, I'll be waiting. My car was already loaded. Just 2 more things to do. I placed the magnetic key holder next to Carl's coffee maker, where he'd see it when he came home. Then I activated the security system, ensuring it would record everything that happened next. At 8:47 a.m., I walked out of my childhood home with my head high and my phone recording in my pocket. Mr. Callahan waved from his hedge. Mrs. Patterson's son was washing his patrol car in her driveway. The trap was set. All Carl had to do was spring it. I was lifting the last box into my trunk when Carl's F-250 roared into the driveway, tires screeching. The concrete delivery must have been canceled. His face through the windshield was purple with rage. Going somewhere? He slammed the truck door so hard the whole vehicle rocked. Moving out, I kept my voice steady. Phone recording in my jacket pocket. Mr. Callahan had stopped trimming, clippers frozen mid-air. Like hell you are. Carl stalked toward me, his work boots heavy on the asphalt. You don't leave without my permission. This is my house. It's half mine. Actually, Dad's will was very clear. That's when he grabbed my wrist, yanking me away from the car. You ungrateful little. You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done? Let go, Carl. His grip tightened, fingers digging into the same spots where IVs usually went in my patients. You're not going anywhere until we discuss what you've been doing. I know you've been in my office. My laptop? You think I'm stupid? I think you're hurting me. I said it loud enough for the security camera to pick up, clear enough for my phone to record. You don't know what hurt is. He jerked me toward the house. Get inside. We're going to have a conversation about respect. No, I pulled back, and that's when his other hand came up, open palm connecting with my cheek, hard enough to snap my head sideways. The taste of copper filled my mouth. Mrs. Patterson's son was already jogging across the street, badge visible on his belt, but Carl wasn't done. He shoved me backward into my car, my spine hitting the side mirror. You're just like your worthless father, he snarled, raising his fist. Think you're so smart? Sir, step away from her, now. Officer Patterson's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. Carl spun around, fist still cocked. This is a family matter, private property. Not anymore. Patterson had his hand on his service weapon, not drawn but ready. Ma'am, are you hurt? I touched my face, fingers coming away bloody from where Carl's wedding ring had caught my lip. Yes. She's lying. Carl started, but then saw Mr. Callahan on his phone, obviously talking to 911. 2 more neighbors had come out, phones raised, recording everything. Sir, I need you to step over here. Patterson moved between us, professional but firm. Keep your hands where I can see them. Carl's face cycled through emotions, rage to confusion to the dawning realization that he'd just assaulted me in front of witnesses. She was stealing from me, breaking into my private files. That's a civil matter, Patterson said. Assault is criminal, ma'am. Do you want to press charges? Yes, I said immediately, and I have a protection order in my car, front seat. The squad cars arrived within minutes, 3 of them, which seemed excessive until I remembered Carl's reputation for bar fights in his younger days. They cuffed him by his truck while he shouted about theft and fraud, and how I'd regret this. The paramedics checked my face, documented the bruising already forming on my wrist, the cut on my lip, the growing knot where my head had hit the mirror. Every injury photographed, measured, added to the official record. You should go to the hospital, the younger EMT said. I'm a nurse. I'll monitor it. I signed the refusal form, then handed Officer Patterson my phone. The whole thing is recorded, audio at least. He listened to a portion, his expression darkening. This is good evidence. Can you email this to me? Mom appeared in the doorway, still in her bathrobe, watching Carl in handcuffs like she was seeing him for the first time. She didn't come to check on me. She just stood there, one hand over her mouth, the other clutching the doorframe. The protection order. I told Patterson, handing him the document. I filed it Monday but hadn't served it yet. I was trying to leave without confrontation. Smart planning. He reviewed it, then looked at Carl. Sir, you're being arrested for assault. You're also being served with a temporary protection order. You cannot return to this residence. Contact Miss Blake or come within 500 feet of her. This is my house, Carl roared. The deed says otherwise, I said quietly. Mom's name and mine. You're just a tenant. They put Carl in the back of the squad car. His face twisted with rage behind the glass. As they drove away, I saw him looking back at the house, maybe noticing the small metallic key holder sitting on the kitchen counter, visible through the window. Mister. Callahan walked over, his weathered face concerned. You all right, kiddo? I will be. I touched my swelling lip gingerly. Thank you for calling. Recorded the whole thing, too. He held up his phone. That security camera of his might mysteriously malfunction, but mine won't. Mom finally approached, stopping 10 feet away like I might be contagious. Nora, what have you done? What I had to. I opened my car door, then turned back. Check the kitchen counter. Mom, there's something Carl needs to see when he makes bail. You're really leaving? My number's the same if you need me, but I can't stay here anymore. I got in my car, started the engine. When you're ready to know the truth about him, I have evidence, all of it. She wrapped her arms around herself, looking small and lost, but she didn't ask me to stay. Didn't ask what evidence. Maybe she already knew. Deep down, what kind of man she'd let into our lives. I drove to Red Maple Residences with a police escort. Officer Patterson insisted, following me to make sure Carl didn't have any friends waiting. My new apartment was on the 3rd floor, corner unit, with a clear view of the parking lot and only one way up. Maya was waiting with ice packs and arnica gel. Saw the arrest on the police scanner app, she said, gently checking my injuries with practiced hands. You okay? He took the bait, I said, holding ice to my face. Came home early, lost control, did exactly what we thought he might. The key holder? On the counter. He'll see it when he gets out. I pulled out my phone, checking the dead man's switch portal, all green. 23 hours until the next check-in. You think he'll open the safe? I thought about Carl's rage, his need for control, his absolute certainty that he was smarter than everyone else. Oh, he'll open it. He won't be able to resist. Carl made bail Saturday morning. I knew because the security app sent me an alert. Motion detected, front door, 11:47 a.m. I sat in my new apartment, laptop open, watching through the camera feed as he stormed through the house. The protection order meant he had 15 minutes to collect essentials with police supervision, but Officer Patterson was being generous, standing by the door while Carl threw clothes into a duffel bag. Then he saw it, the magnetic key holder by the coffee maker. Even through the grainy footage, I could see him freeze. He picked it up, turned it over, found the small piece of paper inside. Mom's real birthday, the one she'd lied about when they met because she was embarrassed about being older than him. 5 more minutes, Patterson called out. Carl's head swiveled to the kitchen, then back to the paper. He knew every inch of that house, had installed half of it himself. He'd noticed something new, something out of place. The security footage showed him going straight to the hall closet where I'd left the box labeled Winter Decorations. He ripped it open, found the safe. I could practically see his mind working. Why would I leave this behind? What was the trap? But Carl's ego was his weakness. He couldn't resist knowing what I had on him. The combination worked on the first try. The safe opened. I watched him pull out the papers, his body language shifting from aggressive to stunned as he read, the forged signature comparison, the Photoshop email, the invoice discrepancies laid out like a prosecutor's dream. Then he found the note on top. Through the camera, I saw him crumple it, then smooth it out to read again. He pulled out his phone, probably calling his lawyer. The conversation was animated. Lots of arm waving. Then he did exactly what I'd hoped. He took the papers with him, stuffing them into his duffel bag. Time's up, Patterson said. Carl left, but not before looking directly at the security camera. Middle finger raised. He thought he was sending me a message. He didn't realize he'd just confirmed on video that he'd taken possession of evidence he'd claimed didn't exist. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. You think you're clever. Carl's voice was low, dangerous. But you just gave me all your evidence. Without these papers, you've got nothing. Carl, I said calmly, you're violating the protection order by calling me. You can't prove anything now. I've got your only copies. I let silence hang for a moment. Then, check your email. What? The one you use for banking. Check it. I heard rustling, then the ding of a laptop opening, then nothing for 30 seconds. How did you? The dead man's switch had been triggered manually. One click, and all 186 pages went to every recipient on my list. But I'd added one more address, Carl's own email, so he could see exactly what the authorities were reading at that very moment. Page 47 is interesting. I said, that's where you discuss with Derek how to forge my signature. Page 92 has the metadata showing you created the fake loan documents 3 days after I supposedly signed them. Oh, and the IRS will probably want to discuss the unreported income on page 130. You can't do this. I'll sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Carl, your lawyer will explain that. Also, you just stole evidence from a crime scene. That's on camera. And you're recording this call, aren't you? So am I. Another protection order violation. The line went dead. Within an hour, the emails started flooding in. First National Bank's fraud department, confirming receipt and opening an investigation. The State Attorney General's office, requesting additional information. The Contractor Licensing Board, scheduling an emergency review of Whitman renovations. Mom called that evening, crying. The bank froze the home equity line. She sobbed. They say there's fraud. Carl says you did this. Carl forged my signature. Mom, he admitted it. It's all documented. But the house, the renovations, were billed at 3 times their actual cost. He's been stealing from us, from you. Silence, then. He showed me some papers, said you made them up. Then why is the bank investigating? Why is his contractor's license under review? Mom, I have recordings of him admitting to the forgery. I need to go. She hung up. I stared at my phone, wondering if she'd ever be ready to see the truth. Maya came by with Chinese takeout and wine. So the switch worked? Perfectly. Every agency has the documents. Carl has copies too, so he knows exactly how screwed he is. What about your mom? I pushed Lo Mein around with my chopsticks. She'll either see it when the investigators start calling, or she won't. I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Probably a burner phone. This isn't over. I screenshot it, forwarded it to Officer Patterson and my lawyer, then blocked the number. Let Carl rage. The documents were out there now. Beyond his control. Beyond his ability to destroy or deny. That night, I sat in my new apartment, ice pack on my face, watching the city lights through windows that didn't rattle when someone slammed a door. The investigation would take months, maybe years, but the wheels were turning, grinding slow but inevitable. I checked the dead man's switch portal one more time before bed, then disabled it. Its job was done. The trap had been sprung, the evidence released, the truth set free into the world where Carl couldn't hammer it into submission or paint over it with lies. Somewhere across town, he was probably drinking, raging, planning his next move. But every plan would run into the same wall, his own words, his own emails, his own greed, all documented and delivered to people with the power to take everything away from him. I logged into the security app one last time, watching the empty house that used to be home. Mom had turned off all the lights except the kitchen, where she sat at the table, surrounded by papers, maybe Carl's invoices, maybe divorce papers, maybe nothing at all. I closed the app and went to bed in my new place, where no one would ever forge my signature again. The freeze came down like an avalanche, silent at first, then crushing everything in its path. Monday morning, First National Bank locked all accounts associated with the fraudulent loan. Carl couldn't access the home equity line, his business accounts, even the joint checking he'd convinced Mom to open. The bank's fraud investigator, a woman named Patricia Huang, called me directly. "Miss Blake, your documentation is comprehensive," she said, professional admiration creeping into her voice. "We're initiating proceedings to void the fraudulent mortgage. Can you come in this week to verify your actual signature?" Tuesday, the State Attorney General's office assigned a prosecutor to the case. Assistant AG Michael Torres left a voicemail. "Miss Blake, we've reviewed your submission. We'll need you to testify before a grand jury. This level of contractor fraud, combined with forgery and identity theft, we're looking at multiple felony charges." Wednesday, the demolition continued. The Ohio Department of Insurance launched an investigation into 3 claims Carl had filed for weather damage that never happened. Turns out, he'd photographed other people's storm damage and submitted it as ours, collecting $43,000 over 2 years. The city building inspector showed up Thursday with a cease and desist order for Whitman renovations. The anonymous tip, which might have come from a certain nurse, included photos of unpermitted electrical work Carl had done at 6 different properties. His contractor's license was suspended pending investigation. Mom finally called Thursday night. "The insurance company says we might have to pay back the claims," she said, voice hollow. "They're calling it fraud. Carl says it's a misunderstanding." "Mom, he photographed damage from other houses and said it was ours. That's not a misunderstanding. He was trying to help us. The house needed work." "The house was fine. Dad maintained it perfectly. Carl saw a piggy bank, not a home." She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, "A forensic accountant came by today. She went through everything with me. The real costs versus what Carl charged us, Nora. It's over $200,000. "I know." "You knew?" "I tried to tell you, multiple times. You didn't want to hear it." "I loved him," she whispered. "He counted on that." Friday brought the formal charges: forgery in the first degree, wire fraud, insurance fraud, identity theft, grand larceny. The prosecutor called it a staggering pattern of deception and theft. Carl's lawyer, the one he'd bragged about golfing with, withdrew from the case once he saw the evidence. Carl was arrested at a job site, in front of his entire crew. Someone filmed it, probably the same crew members he'd been stiffing on pay, and it made the local news. Local contractor charged in elaborate fraud scheme. They used his company photo, the one where he's smiling next to his wrapped truck, arms crossed like he owned the world. His bail was set at $200,000. He couldn't make it. The house he'd claimed to own was in Mom's and my name. His truck was leased through the company, now frozen, his credit cards, all maxed and locked. Even his drinking buddies wouldn't front him the money once they heard about the identity theft. Maya drove me to the courthouse for the temporary protection order hearing, which would determine if it became permanent. Carl appeared via video link from county jail, orange jumpsuit replacing his usual contractor's polo. "Your Honor," his public defender started. "Mr. Whitman is an established businessman in this community." The judge cut him off. "I've reviewed the evidence. Counselor, Miss Blake, do you feel threatened by Mr. Whitman?" "Yes, Your Honor. He assaulted me when I tried to leave, and he's sent threatening messages since." "Mr. Whitman, you're ordered to have no contact with Miss Blake for 2 years. This includes third-party contact through family members. Violation will result in immediate incarceration." The judge's gavel came down like a punctuation mark. Saturday morning, I met with Holbrook at his office to review the civil suit. "The bank is voiding the fraudulent loan," he said, sliding papers across his desk. "They'll pursue Carl for the $75,000 he already withdrew. The insurance company is seeking full restitution plus penalties, and the tax implications." He whistled low. "The IRS doesn't play." "What about the house?" Remains in your and your mother's names, free and clear once the fraudulent lien is removed. Carl has no legal claim to it, never did. And his business? Chapter 7. Bankruptcy within a month. I'd guess. No contractor can survive having their license revoked, especially with pending criminal charges. That afternoon, Mom texted me. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. She looked older, grayer, like she'd aged 5 years in 1 week. Her wedding ring was gone. I filed for divorce, she said without preamble. My lawyer says it'll be quick. Carl has no assets left to divide. Good. The forensic accountant thinks we might recover some money. Carl had a storage unit with materials he bought with our money but never used. They're seizing it all. That's something. She stared at her untouched latte. I'm sorry, Nora. You tried to protect me, and I chose him. You loved him. I loved who I thought he was. She finally looked at me, tears streaming. How did you know? How did you see it when I couldn't? Because I wasn't in love with him. Because I watched him work. Really watched. Because Dad taught me that honest work doesn't need elaborate explanations. Your father would be ashamed of me. No, I said firmly. He'd be proud that you're getting out, that you're choosing truth over comfortable lies. We sat in silence, 2 women calculating the cost of misplaced trust. Outside, life went on. People shopping, laughing, living lives untouched by forged signatures and stolen futures. The house feels empty, Mom said finally. Not because Carl's gone, because now I see all the things he claimed to fix were never broken. All the problems he solved were ones he created. You can sell it, start fresh. Maybe, or maybe I'll actually fix it up. Honestly, this time, hire real contractors with real licenses who do real work. My phone buzzed. An email from the prosecutor. Grand jury has returned indictments on all counts. Trial set for spring. Your testimony will be crucial. I showed Mom the screen. She read it twice, then nodded. I'll testify too, she said. Whatever they need, it's time Carl learned that some things can't be renovated or painted over. Some things stay broken, and some broken things were actually whole until someone with a hammer came along. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disappointment. 6 months had passed since Carl's arrest, and the civil trial was finally here. The criminal trial would come later. But this was about the money, the house, the systematic theft disguised as home improvement. I sat in the plaintiff's section with Mom and our lawyer, Holbrook, across the aisle. Carl hunched beside his third attorney. The first 2 had quit after seeing the evidence. He'd lost weight in jail. His contractor's tan faded to gray. When our eyes met, I saw nothing but rage, quickly masked when the judge entered. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Reeves. Judge Reeves was known for having no patience for contractor fraud. Holbrook had smiled when we drew her name. The first hour was paperwork, establishing the fraudulent mortgage, the forged signatures, the pattern of deception. Then came the evidence I'd compiled, projected on a screen for everyone to see. Exhibit 47, Holbrook announced, an email from Mr. Whitman to his associate explicitly discussing the forgery of Miss Blake's signature. The email filled the screen, Carl's words, casual and damning. Got the daughter's signature handled. Photoshop and a steady hand. She'll never know until it's too late. Objection, Carl's lawyer said weakly. Illegally obtained. Overruled, Judge Reeves said. The email was found on a shared household computer. Continue, Mr. Holbrook. The metadata came next. Digital timestamps showing Carl had created the loan documents 3 days after I'd supposedly signed them. The forensic analyst walked the court through it, each technical detail another nail. The modification date precedes the creation date on the signature page. She explained, this is only possible if someone lifted a signature from one document and placed it on another created later. Then came the contractor's testimony. 3 of Carl's former crew members, granted immunity in exchange for truth. He'd bill for premium materials, by contractor grade, pocket the difference. One testified. Told us it was standard practice. Said the homeowners were loaded. Wouldn't notice. Did you perform work on the Blake residence? Yeah, but half of it was cosmetic. Functioning pipes replaced because he said they needed it. They didn't. New roof when maybe 5 shingles were loose. The insurance investigator took the stand next, outlining 3 fraudulent claims totaling $43,000. Photos on the screen. Storm damage from houses in Kentucky, submitted as damage to our Ohio home. Mr. Whitman filed these claims over 18 months, she said. Each included photos downloaded from online storm damage forums, digitally edited to remove watermarks. Carl couldn't sit still, constantly whispering to his lawyer, who kept shaking his head. Then I took the stand. Miss Blake, Holbrook began, when did you first suspect something was wrong? When the bank letter arrived about a mortgage I never signed. And what did you do? I started documenting everything, every conversation, every piece of paper, every inconsistency. I walked the court through it all. The photos of Carl's inflated invoices, the recordings of him admitting to the forgery, the elaborate shell game he'd played with our house as the prize. Why didn't you go to the police immediately? I needed ironclad evidence. Carl was convincing, manipulative. He'd isolated my mother, controlled the narrative, one accusation without proof, and he'd have destroyed everything before investigators could move. Carl's attorney cross-examined me for an hour, trying to find holes, but there weren't any. Every document was authenticated. Every recording was legal. Every piece of evidence led to the same conclusion. Mom testified last, her voice steady but small. I trusted him, she said. He said he was fixing our house, building our future. I signed whatever he put in front of me. I didn't know he was forging my daughter's signature, stealing from us both. Mrs. Blake, what is your relationship with the defendant now? Divorced, as of last month. And the house? Remains in my name and my daughter's, as my late husband intended. Judge Reeves called a recess. When we returned, Carl was standing, his lawyer's hand on his shoulder keeping him in place. I've reviewed all evidence presented. The judge began. Mr. Whitman, this court finds you liable for fraudulent misrepresentation, conversion, breach of fiduciary duty, and unjust enrichment. She detailed the damages: full restitution of the fraudulent mortgage, $75,000, return of all insurance payouts, $43,000, disgorgement of inflated contractor fees, $132,000, punitive damages for the forgery and fraud, $200,000, total judgment for the plaintiffs, $450,000. Carl shot to his feet. That's everything I have. More than everything. You should have considered that before you stole everything they had. Judge Reeves replied coldly. Additionally, this court orders the immediate liquidation of Whitman Renovation's assets to satisfy this judgment. Any remaining debt will follow you personally. Your Honor? Holbrook stood. We also request an order granting Miss Blake full ownership of her father's 50% of the residence, transferred from joint ownership with her mother. Granted, Mrs. Blake, do you consent? Mom nodded. It's what her father would have wanted. The gavel came down with finality. Carl's empire of forged documents and inflated invoices collapsed in that single sound. As we gathered our papers, Carl broke free from his lawyer's grip, rushing toward our table. You destroyed my life, he screamed at me. The bailiffs intercepted him before he got close, but his words carried. I gave you a home. I fixed everything. No, I said, loud enough for the court reporter to capture. You broke everything. You just hid it under fresh paint. They dragged him out, still screaming about ungrateful women and stolen futures. His lawyer apologized to the judge and hurried after his client. Outside the courthouse, Mom and I stood in the spring sunshine. The criminal trial would start in 3 months. Carl faced up to 20 years if convicted on all counts. The civil judgment would ensure he'd never operate another contracting scam. The house is yours now. Mom said, I'm moving to my sister's in Michigan. Fresh start. You could stay. It's still your home, too. She shook her head. Too many lies in those walls. Even with Carl gone. I hear them. You're stronger than me. Nora, you can reclaim it. Make it what Dad intended. Holbrook joined us, briefcase in hand. The bank will release the lien within 10 business days. Carl's business assets are already frozen. You'll start seeing restitution within the month. Will we get it all back? Most of it. Carl had more hidden than he declared. Storage units full of materials bought with your money, a boat titled to the company, even a small property in Indiana he thought we wouldn't find. He really thought he'd get away with it, Mom said wonderingly. They always do, Holbrook replied, until someone like Nora comes along with receipts. That evening, I drove to the house, my house now, used my key for the first time in 6 months. The smell of Carl's renovations had faded, replaced by simple emptiness. Mom had already moved most of her things. I stood in the kitchen where I'd left that magnetic key holder, the tiny device that had started Carl's unraveling. Such a small thing to bring down such a loud man. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Saw the news. Local contractor ordered to pay $450K in fraud case. You did it. I walked through each room, seeing not what Carl had changed but what Dad had built. Solid bones, good foundation, everything real and honest, even under Carl's cosmetic deceptions. Tomorrow, I'd hire my own contractors, licensed, bonded, recommended by people I trusted. We'd undo Carl's work, restore what was worth saving, properly fix what actually needed repair. But tonight, I just sat in Dad's old chair, looking at the walls Carl had painted to hide problems that didn't exist, and felt the sweet satisfaction of justice served with interest. 6 months after the civil trial, I stood in my renovated kitchen, watching genuine contractors install the last cabinet. No inflated invoices, no phantom work, no forged signatures, just honest people doing honest labor. The criminal trial had ended 2 weeks ago. 22 years for Carl Whitman. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, and assault. He'd taken a plea deal when the federal charges were added. Turns out, using email for fraud made it a federal crime. The prosecutor said it was one of the most documented cases she'd ever seen. That's the last of it. Tom, my contractor, said he was a friend of Mr. Callahan's son, licensed and bonded, with 30 years of verifiable experience. Want to do a walkthrough? We toured the house together. Every fake repair Carl had done was gone, replaced with actual improvements. The roof that never needed replacing had been restored to Dad's original work. The pipes Carl had unnecessarily replaced were back to their functional state. The entire house had been returned to truth. Your father did solid work, Tom observed, checking the basement foundation. This house had good bones, didn't need much except regular maintenance. Carl saw renovation opportunities everywhere. Con artists usually do, create problems to sell solutions. Tom handed me the final invoice, exactly what he'd quoted, down to the penny. My dad was a contractor too, taught me that your reputation is worth more than any markup. Mom visited the next day, her first time back since moving to Michigan. She looked healthier, lighter, like she'd shed more than just a bad marriage. It looks like home again, she said, running her hand along the kitchen counter. Real granite this time, not the laminate Carl had charged us granite prices for. Like when Dad was alive. That was the goal. We sat at the dining table, the one Dad had built himself in his workshop. Carl had wanted to replace it with something modern. I'd hidden it in the basement instead, and now it was back where it belonged. I got a call from the prosecutor. Mom said, Carl's trying to appeal. Let him. The evidence hasn't changed. His mother wrote me a letter, said I'd ruined her son's life. He ruined his own life. We just documented it. Mom pulled out an envelope. The insurance company sent the final settlement, full restitution plus interest. She slid the check across the table. This is your portion. $70,000, not enough to erase the trauma, but enough to truly start over. I've been thinking about Dad's workshop. I said, converting it into a home office, maybe take some online courses, become a nurse practitioner. He'd like that, you using his space to build your future. That afternoon, Maya helped me install a security system, a new one, not connected to any memories of Carl. Think you'll ever trust anyone again? She asked, syncing the cameras to my phone. I trust you. I trust Tom and his crew. I trust Mr. Callahan and Officer Patterson. I adjusted the doorbell camera angle. I just verify now. Trust but verify everything. Carl really did a number on you both. Carl taught me something valuable. How to spot a con. How to document deception. How to protect myself legally and financially. I looked at the small safe I'd installed in Dad's workshop. This one holding our real documents, protected by biometric locks. Expensive lessons, but thorough. The next morning, I found Mr. Callahan planting roses along our shared fence line. Figured the place could use some beauty, he said, soil dark under his fingernails. Your dad and I planned to do this years ago. Thank you for everything. That day when Carl... You don't need to thank me. Your dad helped me through my divorce way back. Least I could do was return the favor. He planted another rose, patting the soil gently. Besides, watching that jackass get hauled away was payment enough. I returned to work full-time at Riverlight Medical, picking up extra shifts in the trauma unit. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd lived through my own trauma and come out stronger. The house was mine, free and clear. The debts were paid. The truth had been told, documented, and legally validated. One evening, Officer Patterson stopped by off-duty, checking in as he'd done periodically since the assault. Heard Carl's appeal was denied, he said, accepting the coffee I offered. Yesterday, his lawyer said they're out of options. Good. Some people think they can talk their way out of anything. Document trail like yours, though, can't argue with evidence. My dad always said to keep receipts. Smart man. Patterson stood to leave, then turned back. You know, my daughter's thinking about nursing school. Mind if I give her your number? Could use a mentor who knows how to stand her ground. I'd be honored. The house felt different now. Not empty, but expectant. Like it was waiting for the next chapter. One without lies hidden in the walls or threats disguised as love. I'd replaced Carl's cheap locks with digital ones, his fake security with real protection, his gaslighting with LED bulbs that actually worked. In Dad's workshop, now my office, I'd hung all the documentation from the case in a single frame, the forged signature, the real one, and the judge's final verdict. My diploma in nursing hung beside it, along with my acceptance letter to the nurse practitioner program. Some might call it petty. Keeping those reminders, I called it proof. Proof that I'd fought back. Proof that truth wins when properly documented. Proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a notarized signature and a court order. I looked at Dad's photo on my new desk, the one from my graduation that Carl had cracked. I'd had it reframed in solid oak, unbreakable. I protected the house, Dad. I whispered to his frozen smile. Protected it from someone who saw dollar signs where you saw memories. Mom's safe in Michigan. I'm safe here. And Carl's learning that some renovations come with a 22-year warranty, served in a federal cell. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, my chest tightened. Old habits. Then I read it. Miss Blake, this is Sandra from the prosecutor's office. Wanted you to know Carl's restitution payment just cleared. The house is officially yours, free of all liens. Congratulations on your victory. Victory. Such a small word for such a long fight. I walked outside to water Mr. Callahan's roses, now blooming along our fence. The evening was quiet, peaceful. No sound of unnecessary construction. No smell of paint covering problems that didn't exist. For the first time in 3 years, I was home, really, truly home, in a house built on solid foundations, maintained with honest work, and protected by truth carved into legal stone. Carl had thought he was renovating. In the end, All he'd done was help me rebuild. Stronger, smarter, and surrounded by documents that would last longer than any paint job. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to hear what you think.